Hello, everyone. I am on hour 12 of my 24 in 24 for Sam's fundraising challenge, where I'm doing a session or a talk every hour on the hour for 24 hours. Started at midnight yesterday, so I'm halfway through. I'm going to go all the way till tonight at 11. It's to raise visibility of my Samaritans branch. Um, what we do is we are a crisis phone line for those who are feeling suicidal and going through things in life. And what I want to create here is a space where we can talk about the things that really matter. So here on the session we have Margo, and we're going to talk about violence against women. Hi, Margo.
Hi, Pei. Thank you. So, we will talk about violence against women. Pei, thank you very much for accepting my proposition to come and talk here. And I think what you're doing is really important. And how are you doing? Have you had enough coffee? How is it going?
Thank you very much for asking. It was, I think it was a bit tough early on in the morning. I tried to have a nap before I got started, but I couldn't sleep that much. So um, and then it was a bit tough, like 2, 3 o'clock. But like now, I seems to be okay. So I think it's just my circadian rhythm is kind of caught up. So I'm all good, and I can't wait to hear what you've got to share. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure. Can everyone see my slides? Is that
I
on?
will. I will flick it on now.
Okay, beautiful. So, violence against women. I'm going to be talking as a scholar, somebody who studied this topic as my master's degree and researched this topic. So, not just somebody who experienced this violence. Unfortunately, most women, every third woman, has experienced any form of violence, and most of them, yes, unfortunately. And most of this violence, when we talk like that, is actually physical abuse. So let's carry. We'll give. Will good. Sorry.
Mm. It's just like
Oh, why it doesn't go? I'm sorry.
okay.
Oh, it just doesn't do anything. And the same on yours just doesn't scroll.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. It works. Okay. So that abuse removes control and agency, and it leaves very little space for action. Okay, that's why it impacts culture and employment. So I came up with a little form impact on culture and employment. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm just focusing to see whether it's all working. So, cool. So violence and abuse, it impacts culture and employment when it comes to workplace, for example, or when it comes to governmental structures. So when we think about any sort of jokes, any sort of TV shows where something is said about women, we have to think about how will that areas. Okay, so 73% of women have experienced violence in the workplace in 2023 in the UK. 42 women are still experiencing some sort of physical violence in the workplace worldwide, and 19% of women are reporting regular, I forgot this word, regular, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I forgot the words in English, regular abuse in
Harassment.
words such as catcalling, street
Oh,
abuse. Yes, in the UK. Okay, and this is just about women from 18 to 25. It's about it. So it seems quite little, but actually it is significant. Okay, and last definition, what is violence against women? So, United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. It's important to note that coercion has actually been recognized in the UK as one of the forms of violence if you are being coerced to do anything, even to work, because some women are being coerced to stay or to leave a workplace. For example, when a couple has a child. Okay. So we have two definitions, and I'm gonna ask you, Payne, or maybe somebody else who wants. I don't know if we will be kind of seeing messages to tell the difference between two definitions. First definition we already talked about. It's a bit more expanded by United Nations. So violence against women and girls is one of the world's most prevalent human rights violations, taking place every day, many times over, in every corner of the globe. It has serious short and long-term physical, economic, and psychological consequences on women and girls, preventing their full and equal participation in society, says UN Women. And then there is another research-based definition. Violence against women and girls is any form of violence disproportionately perpetrated by men against women and girls. It is deeply linked to women's inequality. It includes sexual violence, domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, also called honor-based abuse, exploitation and abuse of women and girls in online spaces. That's End Violence Against Women team. And Violence Against Women organization who are performing research. So, do you see the difference between these definitions?
it feels like the bottom one is more a systemic and cultural definition than the top one.
Yeah. And there is another very important thing about the second definition that is often missed.
Perpetrated by men?
Yes. Yes. So unfortunately, we have to name the abuser. The first definition takes our attention to women as victims of abuse, somebody who suffers. It centers attention on women and their suffering, which is also important. We shouldn't be dismissing it. But second definition names the perpetrator, who is disproportionately perpetrating the violence. And it is very important when we talk about how do we fix the issue. We cannot be just saying violence happens without saying who is performing this violence. And we wouldn't be worrying about naming the perpetrator if over 90% of it wasn't performed by men. Okay, so unfortunately, it is over 90% of violence that is against women that is perpetrated by men. So, second definition is research-based. Of course, UN definition is also research-based, but it is very diplomatic. We don't want to offend anyone, but also it doesn't point you in the right direction when it comes to fixing the issue. How do we fix that? And second definition does. It tells you that men perpetrate violence against women disproportionately. And when we talk like that, we think, okay, what do we have to change? Do we have to change how boys are brought up? Do we have to change an education system? Do we have to implement new parenting approaches? What can we do about it? So, how are you feeling about these two definitions?
It feels like the second one would be more powerful to propel action.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But also, unfortunately, we are we're not using second definition as often as I would like to, and many scholars would like to, because again, it names the perpetrator, and many people will take it as a personal offense. We all know it's not all men, and of course, it's not all men. It is true, but it is over 90% of cases men who perpetrate the violence. So I think it is important to not generalize, of course, but it is also important that we name the perpetrator, and men who perpetrate violence, they feel that they are seen. They are in a spotlight as perpetrators. They are in spotlight. Violence against women is perpetrated by men, and when we put it like this, we evoke some inner policing in men to watch their actions, to watch what they do and what they say, because sometimes minor instances of violence, for example, in the workplace, they happen without somebody trying to offend, trying to do something on purpose. It happens accidentally. It's just a joke. You should smile more. You look very sad. Are you on your periods? All of these things. And when they pile up, and they still happen, unfortunately, and when they pile up, they turn into something more. They turn into burnout, suicidal ideations that women experience, and yeah, and more. Okay. If you want to say anything, you can interrupt me at any time.
Fascinating.
Okay. So, forms of violence. We have that's kind of more known forms of violence, and also that are mostly perpetrated in the UK, because I'm currently UK based. So it's sexual violence, and it is important to name this violence, say what it is. It is rape, sexual assault, sexual abuse, intimate partner violence. It is well known that most violence against women is perpetrated by intimate partner or somebody that women know. So it can be a father, a brother, or even a teacher. Female genital mutilation still happens, and there was a recent case in the UK, unfortunately, as well. And there is currently a court proceeding over it. Femicide. I would say that all of this, femicide is kind of an umbrella term where we can put all of these things under the femicide, because it has been recognized by UN Women. Femicide has been recognized by the UK Home Office as well as a term. So violence against women happens so much that we currently can talk about femicide, that there is purposeful killing and destruction of women as a class, women as a societal, as a layer of society. So that is femicide. So obviously, it comes from the word genocide combined with female, and then forced pregnancy or abortion or sterilization. If we think about forced pregnancy, and if we think about countries where abortion is banned, that is institutional violence against women. So how can we tackle violence on a local basis? How can we talk about preventing boys from seeing women as weaker and as somebody who can they easily offend if violence is perpetrated on institutional level in some countries, such as forced pregnancy, abortion, or even sterilization. And of course, when we talk about such things, we immediately think about native populations who went through forced sterilization. So violence against women on institutional level was performed long ago, unfortunately. And we also have to remember that. And then we have ritualized sexual abuse. We have trafficking and sexual exploitation that takes place in places that suffer from conflicts currently. So if we look at UN women statistics, violent trafficking and sexual exploitation has risen in countries that are currently bordering with Ukraine. So Poland, Romania, and Moldova are suffering from disproportionate trafficking and sexual exploitation, and it is horrific. So all countries that are suffering from conflict, immediately, ultimately, we think about how it is affecting women, and usually it is about trafficking and sexual exploitation, of course, and wartime rape, of course. I know it is awful and it is really hard to listen to, but it is what happens. Harmful marriage practices and economic abuse, of course, something that happens more often than we think about it when woman takes parental leave, when she takes maternity leave, and she is left with little to no money at all, and then when she has to ask for favors from her husband, which is often the case, and he asks, but what do you need this money for? We have plenty of whatever there is. Do you want to go to nails? Do you want to go to makeup? Why do you need that? You're a stay-at-home mom, and that is already economic abuse. We think about it very little, but it actually what we have. So let's talk about roots a little bit. This is where many anti-feminist movements accuse us feminists and feminist scholars of taking away traditional things, because now I'm accusing Plato of violence against women, but nothing personal to Plato. It's just things he said. The soul is male. Women are as unequal to men as animals are, both lower forms of being, said by Plato, long time ago. So Plato is still he is still taught, he is still learned at schools and at universities as a leader of thought, as high stage philosopher, antique philosopher. He is something sacred that we have. However, he said these things, and we cannot talk about Plato and his studies, his researches, and things that he taught his students without also acknowledging that this is what he thought about women. It is very important to acknowledge when we talk about philosophers. Okay, so that's a bit, theory of dehumanization. So men are fully human, rational, spiritual beings, of course. Nobody doubts that. But women, and still it is the case in many men and many societies still carry on thinking like that women are inferior beings, closer to animals, lacking reason, authority, or even a complete soul. So women's value is not inherent, but judged in relation to male-defined traits. Okay, so it was the case in 18th century that a woman was judged according to a class or a position in society of a man who she was married to, or her father, for example. So, yeah, we all know that. Do you have any questions at this point, or anyone has any questions? Yeah. Okay, you're just enjoying your coffee while I'm yapping. Cool. So this is an amazing book that I'm currently reading, Lovers and Angels, The Theory of Sex and Christianity. And this is where I'm collecting all of these amazing quotes from, because this is just to see that quotes from philosophers. Somebody just said in the comments, yeah, it is. So women could not be considered as in the likeness of God. After all, the first woman, Eve, had encouraged the first man, Adam, into his fatal rebellion against God's commands, the fall that resulted in the expulsion from Eden. How can we treat women as full-bodied individuals if they are so deceitful? If they have caused this amazing tragedy of expulsion of people from Eden, how can we treat them equally? They have to be led, they have to be taught, they have to be guided by a man. And it is funny that before I was worried that I'm generalizing, right, when I talk about men as perpetrators. only about perpetrators who are men, okay? But here, we've been living according to a book that generalizes all women. All women are like that because one woman, once upon a time, probably did something like that, maybe. I don't want to offend anyone's feelings, of course. But yeah, so violence against women isn't only about power, it's about centuries of deeply rooted ideas that women are somehow less worthy of protection, dignity, and divinity. So when we have a female goddess or somebody who might be a shrine in the name of a woman, there are always people who are downplaying how worthy is this woman of being a divine creature, of being, being an Eve of, and so on. If you have any questions at any point, just stop me. Okay, this is more recent. By marriage, the husband and wife are one person in law, that is, the very being or legal existence of woman is suspended. This is very sad. Why would you want to get married if your existence is suspended after you are getting married, right? So, this is by William Blackstone in the 18th century. Again, theory and practice. So, marriage ultimately erased, and it still is the case, unfortunately, in many countries in the world, in more than we can think of. If the only country where you can think woman's identity is erased after marriage is, I don't know, Afghanistan, woman's identity is just erased there. Unfortunately, at the moment, you have to think deeper. You have to do your research because it is happening in most countries in the world. So yeah, erasure and autonomy and right, erasure of autonomy and rights, and husband absorbs woman's identity. Sad to say, and also a little bit funny, my personal situation. Recently, me and my partner got civilly partnered, and I'm from Ukraine, so it is still a heavily kind of masculine and patriarchal society, and my parents are treating me so different now that I'm, well, in their eyes I'm a married woman, not civilly partnered, and now they are trying, they're trying to imply things like, well, a married woman behaves differently. So it's like my husband has absorbed my identity. And so it's still happening, even in such progressive countries as Ukraine. People still have these ideas. So the ideas that deeply shaped Western legal traditions, including US, Canadian, British, and colonial legal systems. Yeah, we're talking about countries that have been colonies of Canada, of Britain and Netherlands and other countries. Long delays in recognition of marital rape as a crime. In the UK, it was only criminalized in 1991 because, well, it is a marital thing. Woman has her wifely duty, husband has his duties, but by some reason only women are being pressured and raped. Well, mostly women, unfortunately. Okay, and of course, that all impacts ongoing assumptions in custody battles, workplace laws, or domestic abuse cases. So there is still prejudice when it comes to domestic abuse cases. Let them fight, let them, it's a marital thing. Why do we have to involve somebody from the outside, right? And when we talk about things like this, we have to remember that it's not only traditions that are regarding the marriage that were shaped by such thinking in the Western society. It's also a workplace that was shaped not taking women and their needs into account, kind of 9 to 5 workplace. It wasn't, the workplace wasn't created taking into account women's cycles, for example. Of course, note that we have different phases when we're more active than we are in other phases. So here we're talking about traditions and legal system, but actually it tackles more issues than that. So, and uh, can't even comment on that. I don't think there is anything particularly wrong about hitting a woman if she is a bitch, a hysterical, or bloody minded. Sean Connery in a 1965 interview with Playboy, and then he repeated it in 1987 with Barbara Walters. Um, do I even have to explain this one? So, can we now see the correlation between a man who went to school, who saw probably the majority of his teachers were women, right, at school. He was raised by his mom. Well, I don't know, a lot about Sean Connery. I'm just assuming. Can we see a correlation between Plato's ideation about women and where did Sean Connery get his ideas about how women can be treated? Are there any similarities at all?
I don't know enough to comment, but for a long time, the males, um, especially if white in Western society, have always been, more dominant. I mean, the women's vote, it didn't, it wasn't that long ago that women got the vote. So I think there's many reasons why, but I don't know enough to actually
No,
postulate.
no, you were. It was quite a, yeah, just kind of evoking the discussion that we see that those it's so similar. It hasn't changed. In fact, it hasn't changed, and we can see and we can still see and hear men talking like this in on TV shows. And yes, they are being cancelled, but in fact, it doesn't really impact their career much when they talk like this about women. Unfortunately, so yeah, you're right. So, um, just another quote. Do we still have time? Do you want us to finish at any particular moment?
Just do you have like more slides?
Oh, I have plenty. I prepared so many.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Because it's supposed to be only like half an hour.
yeah, that's fine.
So do you want to pick out like key themes from your slide deck to share?
I think I shared almost important information, honestly. There is because I wanted to show the roots where violence is rooted, that it's more than just the headline of the newspaper or a TV show that is running. It deeply is rooted in our society and not just through religious beliefs as well. So it goes way back to the times of Plato and even more back at, and that was just an example. I wanted to pick out something that people could recognize and they relate to. That's something they've heard. Oh yeah, we all know Plato. He is great. He's a philosopher. He is a thinker, ancient thinker. But actually, this is what he thought about women, and this is what we cherish. So we cherish his other ideas. They are valuable, and nobody says they aren't. But this is also what he thought. This is also what was going at the time. And it's important that when we teach history, when we teach law, when we teach pretty much anything, that we recognize um, the how long the way we've come, how far we've come for women to be sitting in classrooms and learning, and that at large, uh, this is what we've done as women. This is what we've done. We've earned it. Our, your, I don't know, other British kind of women's grandmas, they fought for it. It might be what we call a small fight. It might be a small rebellion in the workplace. They might not held um, posters on the street, outside of the Westminster, but there was something they did to change this and for us to be able to have this discussion today. And it's important to look beyond those news and headlines, and also important to name the perpetrator, who is perpetrating this violence. So that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, if you have any questions or anything.
So so you said at the beginning that you approach it as a scholar, kind
Yes.
of like the approach. Um, is it usually when you are presenting this thing, this is information and history and context, or is there usually a this is the history and context and how we got here, and these are the takeaways and call to action? Do you have like the part two? So now we kind of like understand,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it is like, um, now what? So now we
Mm-hmm.
know what do you have some takeaways for the audience?
Ooh, yes, yes, I do have some takeaways. So, first of all, what I wanted to say that will seem a little bit out of context, but it is important, and somebody will already understand it, and somebody will at some point later, um, kind of think about it. If you're crying in a bathroom at work, then there is violent behavior out there. It might not be apparent, it might not be obvious, but there is violent behavior somewhere out there, and you are not overreacting, because all of those quotes that I showed, they are about women being hysterical, overreacting, not being, we don't have, our emotions are not valid.
Mm,
If you are crying in a bathroom, or if you feel angry or sad, you it is a valid emotion and you're feeling it for a reason. So, because I want to tie to the workplace, of course, because many of people who are listening to us probably are today working. I'm not working because I'm ill. So if you experience any sort of negative emotion, such as anger, such as disappointment, such as frustration, or you're at the points where you have a burnout and you're crying, it is very likely the result of some sort of violent behavior that might not be apparent. It doesn't mean somebody hits you, or even or harasses you or makes jokes. It might be very subtle, and it takes observation and time to understand what that behavior is. But for many of us, not just women, but women with some learning difficulties, for example, like ADHD or autism or dyslexia, it just 9 to 5 workplace that is
mm.
already quite violent to our nature, for example. So yeah, that all is violence. So we have to not think only about women dying, but also about women who are living, who are victim survivors of this institutionalized violence against women.
Thank you. That was very, very insightful. I did not know, like for example, the formal definitions, and why it's important to actually name the abuses and the offenses that are being, the things that are being done. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to do this as well. You know, a lot of times we are just involved in what's happening, but there's always a bigger picture, and it helps to put a lot of that into context so that, um, for example, we look across the pond and we look at different countries where the progress seems to be going backwards, and if we are not careful, it could happen anywhere, and whatever progress we've made can be stepped back so easily. So thank you for reminding us about the big picture, Margot. I appreciate
No
that.
problem.
um,
No
in
problem.
in the meantime, I'm just gonna pop this up here, which is, any of you who are watching, I hope you will have found the session useful, and you can donate if you want, and just carry on having the really important conversations, be it mental health, be it violence that you might be encountering, or any such thing. So, again, appreciate you taking the time, Margot, to be here.
No problem. It was very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much.